Of course, in this interview, Jussie does not admit that he assaulted himself. He maintains his innocence to this very day. And the journalist conducting the interview, her name is Esther Kang, doesn't press him on it or challenge him in any way whatsoever. In fact, she seems to believe in his innocence as well. Here's the title of the piece, quote, "Inside Jussie Smollett's darkest day and how the alleged 2019 hoax tested my strength."
Jussie Smollett has crawled out of hiding. Y'all remember the guy, so I'll spare you the details because in this one, Matt Walsh is about to build it up, then break it down. One thing's for sure, Jussie Smollett is still an actor and a pathological liar, so let's get it started.
We turn to the great civil rights icon, Jussie Smollett, who has emerged from hiding to, as they say, speak his truth. Actually, he's promoting a new film that he wrote, directed, and starred in. It's a long-awaited feature, hotly anticipated by the legions of Jussie fans out there, of which, needless to say, I am one, probably the only one. And as part of his promotional tour, he sat down for an in-depth interview with People magazine, where he, for the first time, I believe, spoke at length about the horrific attack in 2019 that nearly cost him his life and his Subway sandwich. Many people think that the attack, must have been somewhat less devastating simply because he planned and choreographed and paid for it himself. But you could argue that that only makes it more devastating. I mean, it's a terrible thing to be assaulted on a street corner at 2 in the morning. Imagine how much more terrible it must be when you are the one assaulting yourself. It's kind of the ultimate betrayal. So, of course, in this interview, Jussie does not admit that he assaulted himself. He maintains his innocence to this very day. And the journalist conducting the interview, her name is Esther Kang, doesn't press him on it or challenge him in any way whatsoever. In fact, she seems to believe in his innocence as well. Here's the title of the piece, quote, "Inside Jussie Smollett's darkest day and how the alleged 2019 hoax tested my strength. I was numb." Note how the word alleged is being used here, even though he was convicted in a court of law and found guilty of staging a hoax. Proper journalistic practice is to drop the alleged qualifier once a person is found guilty of the charge. But if this person was a proper journalist, then Smollet would not be talking to her. So, reading on, Jussie Smollett doesn't care what anyone thinks. In his eyes, only the universe can right his wrongs. Still, the road to finding inner peace was one of the hardest things he's ever faced. He's learned how to hold on for 5 more minutes amid the chaos of the last 5 years. A close personal mantra he now holds dear to his heart. Yes, this is really happening. They are doing a hagiographic puff piece on a convicted hate crime hoaxer. A puff piece that descends into incomprehensible nonsense by the second sentence. Only the universe can right his wrongs? I mean, what is that even supposed to mean? Is the universe righting the wrongs he committed or the wrongs that are supposedly committed against him? And how will the universe do that if the wrong that was committed against him was also committed by him? It seems like there's not much for the universe to do in this situation. If I'm the universe, I'm going to look at that and say, well, I mean, that basically worked itself out. So it's not clear what any of this means, but let's continue anyway. In an exclusive sit-down with People since the 2019 incident, Smollet, 42, joins the Zoom conversation, ready as I'll ever be, from his hotel room in New York City. 5 years ago, Smollet, who identifies as a gay black man, claimed that on January 29, 2019, while on his way home from a Subway sandwich shop, he was attacked by 2 men late at night, yelling racist and homophobic slurs, putting a rope around his neck and dousing him with bleach. After an investigation conducted by law enforcement, prosecutors alleged that Smollet staged the attack to get media attention and paid $3,500 to 2 brothers, Abimbola Alabinjo, and then whatever the other guy's name is. Despite the narrative, he says so many have assumed Smollet maintains his innocence to this day.
Not only did he pay these guys and set it all up so that he could play the victim, he also tried to capitalize on the country's hatred for Trump. And it worked for a few minutes until the completely ridiculous details came to light, and even the staunchest of Trump haters wouldn't believe him after that. I mean, well, I guess there's still some. I mean, look at this People magazine article, but it created another chapter in the Hollywood mainstream media lies to frame Donald Trump and MAGA as something that it's not. Because if you remember, he apparently, his attackers put a MAGA hat on his head too. That's something that Matt Walsh left out there, but let's continue.
Now, again, just to interject, it's not a narrative or allegation. He was proven guilty in a court of law of committing a hoax. Although he was, of course, quite obviously guilty even before the verdict, so you didn't really need that in order to be able to say conclusively that he was guilty. But People magazine will not let any of that get in the way of Jussie continuing to victimize himself. Quote, "I was numb," he says, recalling the incident to People. "I didn't know how to connect the dots. I really genuinely didn't know. I couldn't make sense of what was going on. And I couldn't make sense of what people were actually thinking. What exactly do they think happened? I couldn't put two and two together." Yes, he was confused. He couldn't put two and two together. Couldn't connect the dots. It was bewildering. He paid two guys to pretend to beat him up, and then those guys that he paid to do that thing went ahead and did that thing that he paid them to do. So the thing that he was doing to himself was done, but it's bizarre. It's a mystery. It's bizarre. He doesn't. How did it happen? Aside from the fact that it happened because he deliberately set it all up and made it happen, but still, how? How is it? He's confused. It's like if I'm walking down the street and I'm looking at my own legs and saying, how am I moving across? I don't understand. How is this happening? How I started there and I'm heading there and what is happening right now? How am I getting there? I mean, I am actually bringing myself there, but how is it happening? It's very confusing. It's very existential. But the good news is that Jussie is very resilient. Continuing, quote, "Smollet says that he has since put in years of self-reflection and healing, calling it difficult. In fact, he says, we're still dealing with the repercussions from that narrative. We're still dealing with that every day. At the same time, it's not in my mental, it's not in my soul, it's not in my spirit," says Smollet, who TMZ reported entered an outpatient rehab facility in 2023. "People can say what they want about you, but they have no control. They can do whatever they want. They can even put you behind bars. They can control your physical, but they can't control my mind. They can't control my spirit. They can't control my soul. They can't control the knowledge that I have of who I am." Now, the article goes on like that for many paragraphs. I'm not going to subject you to any more of it, but I do have to read this one line, one more line, a couple of lines, because it's just, it's just great. Continuing, quote, "I'm not going to sit here and victimize myself and be like, woe is me, because there's so many people that don't have the platform or resources that I have to protect themselves," Smollet says, saying that people often admit to crimes they didn't commit because they feel it's the easier way out. Yes, Jussie Smollett said he's not going to victimize himself. Now, the irony is glaring enough that I don't need to point it out, even though I guess I just did. Ultimately, though, I think that this interview, if you read the whole thing, which I did for some reason, proves, number one, that the media are shameless, just shameless to a degree never witnessed before in human history. But we already knew that. It also proves that Jussie Smollett is a pathological liar who lies so compulsively that he probably doesn't even recognize when he's lying anymore. I mean, he might actually believe at this point that it really happened. He might have convinced himself of it at this point. But we already knew that also. I think most of all it shows that it shows what a person becomes when their whole identity is tied up in victimhood. Like Jussie Smollett committed the hoax in the first place because he was desperate to be a victim. Now he's a national disgrace and a punchline, but he clings to his faux victimhood anyway because he doesn't know what else to do. He has no identity outside of his perception of himself as a victim. It is pitiful to watch and grotesque, but also, we have to admit, very funny. And that is why Jussie Smollett and the woman who wrote this fawning article about him are both today canceled.
Yes, Matt, that was glaringly obvious, but I'm still glad that you pointed it out. And apparently, Jussie, whatever his name is, I can't think of anything other than the Dave Chappelle skit when he calls him Jussie Smollett or whatever every time I say this guy's name, which is a credit to Matt Walsh's point that this dude, Jussie Smollett, has basically become nothing more than a punchline in America and across the world probably, but apparently he's still holding out hope that he'll get justice. And to be clear, he was proven guilty of 5 felony counts of disorderly conduct for lying to police. So the Hollywood Reporter who claims Jussie Smollett says he spent $3 million fighting hoax case. I don't want to have a felony on my record for something I didn't do, it says in quotes. And it's also USA Today. Jussie Smollett says he has to move forward after alleged hate crime hoax. And you'll see this is September 29th, and this first one was October 6th. So, I mean, these are recent articles. But I wanted to point out that Jussie Smollett has faith he'll get justice. Well, to those of us who believe that he lied and committed a hate crime, we also hope that he'll get justice. But I don't think that's the kind of justice that he has in mind. And so it's incredible to me that Jussie Smollett still claims that he's a victim, even though he's saying that he doesn't want to play the victim. You look at the role that he's playing, and, you know, it's amazing as well that he's still getting roles in Hollywood because he's such a poor actor. You can't convince the public, you can't convince anybody of any of the things that you're claiming, yet he still somehow failed upwards, which is the case with the Democratic Party, Hollywood, mainstream media, almost every time. Look at Kamala Harris, right? And so, anyways, maybe it's because he's gay, I guess, but whatever, that's a whole nother point. So anyways, just wanted to share that with you guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.